Hey guys, hope you're well. My name is Rob. Welcome to the Kinetic Rugby League channel. In this video, I'm going to be going through the Super League Round 1 Power Rankings. Let's get started. So, if you were here last year for the Power Rankings, you'll understand how this works, or if you've seen Power Rankings on articles or from other things before, you'll know how Power Rankings work. If you are unfamiliar with this, essentially, this is my ranking from 1st to 12th of the order of quality of the current Super League teams. What I'm going to go through in this video is probably the most unofficial list of power rankings that I've ever done. I think given the nature of the round, how crazy the results were in the situation with Salford and Saints, this is going to be the most unofficial power rankings I've ever done. So here's a quick example. I think that the Wigan Warriors are still the strongest squad. I think they are the most powerful team. Therefore, they should be number one. For a little spoiler, they are not number one. Simply because this week I'm going to go purely on the quality of performances from each team. There will be an asterisk for two teams on this list, but I'll just go off the quality of performance this week. But as the weeks go by, we'll get to normal, more official power rankings, and it will look like a list that we'll all start to probably agree with. And the final thing is, for example, if I have a team in 4th place who's about to play a team in 7th place, it doesn't necessarily mean that I think the 4th place team in this list is going to win. It's just a mixture of recent form, and then for the predictions, player availability could be completely different. Maybe the team in 4th place is on a decline, the team in 7th is on the up. So there's nuance to things, and that will be presented in the predictions videos, but hopefully that's a little bit clear. I'll stop yapping for this one, and then for the rest of these videos, we're just steamrolling ahead, knowing exactly what we need to do for these videos. So here's my unofficial Super League Round 1 power rankings. Starting with 12th place, I have the Salford Red Devils. Of course, there is an asterisk there because of the fact that so many kids had to play, and they only had 3 men on the bench as well. So yeah, it was going to be a rough one once we knew exactly what the team was going to be. But I'm proud of them. I hope they're proud of themselves. They get some Super League experience. And one thing I mentioned in my match review video is that if this is their go-to lineup for the reserves, hopefully they use this as a great experience to bond together, having to go through this adversity, grow mentally, physically, take that into the reserves comp, and just be better as a unit, and maybe some of these young lads can start to break through over the next couple of years, which would be great. They obviously struggle to make meters through the middle, struggle to slow down the progress, weren't up to the same speed. And again, that's not to complain, that's not to put them down. This is exactly what I said in my match review video. It's just to say that's how the game went. And it was a hell of a grind, but I'm proud of them for the work that they did, and they should be very proud of themselves, and Salford fans for being as loud as they were and staying behind the team. So yeah, Salford Red Devils in 12th. Moving on to 11th place, I have the Catalans Dragons. You have a squad full of quality in all areas, and you put up 4 points. It just simply is not good enough. Simply is not good enough. And I understand that there's a lot of new players that need to gel, but the same can be said about Hull FC. So that excuse doesn't fly. They just clearly haven't started off well enough. I do think they will improve over time. McNamara is a good coach. There's quality players there that will learn, improve. They will figure out ways to put up more points. But to concede 24 points, it's not the end of the world. Some of the tries that they did concede were a little bit chaotic, so it's not, that's also not the end of the world. But on the attacking side, they do need to be a lot better with the ball. They were a bit too stale last year. This is an issue I had going into the season, and one of the reasons why I backed Hull FC in my predictions in the first place. But yeah, stale starting attack, need to be a little bit stronger defensively, but I'm sure they will improve going forward. To Catalans in 11th. On to 10th place, I've got the Leeds Rhinos. There's a pretty stale performance from them. Not enough energy for my liking, especially in a big game against Wakefield, who are absolutely going to be raring to go for this back into Super League, and you just don't match the new side in Super League with your energy. It's just seems weird to me. From a Brad Arthur team, it just seemed a bit alien to me. I wasn't really expecting them to look that lethargic, but they need to have more clarity on the last tackle, which was still a problem from last year. I thought maybe they'd look a bit cleaner. I think they're missing Lockie Miller massively. He's still got another month to go roughly. But yeah, they have quality players in there and they will sort things out over time and look stronger. But it's just the lack of energy was really alarming. Defensively, I think they were okay at times. And with the ball, had some decent carries through the middle. It's just winging it on the last tackle or towards the back end of sets ain't going to do you any favours going forward. So they just need to clean things up a bit. It's fine defensively, but yeah, in all departments, just got to execute a little bit better. And I'm sure they'll be okay going forwards, but that's Leeds Rhinos in 10th. Moving on to 9th place, I have the Huddersfield Giants. Now, there was a lot of teams in 9th place last year that were there because they were extremely poor. I don't think this Huddersfield performance was anywhere near as bad as those 9th place teams last year were. So 9th does feel a little bit low, but it wasn't that great. But it does still feel harsh at the same time, if that makes sense. I think one of the reasons for that is because it clearly looked like a much stronger Huddersfield side compared to last year. In terms of intensity, willingness to spread the ball, in terms of their effectiveness with the kicking game, they looked like they had a bit more clarity. And even with Danny Richardson, according to Luke Robinson, only having 3 training sessions with them, doing, I'd say, a somewhat half-decent job with the kicking game. Lola Haya took on some of that responsibility as well, as to be expected. But I think in that department, they were okay. And it wasn't disastrous. And one thing that really helped was Warrington's lack of a quality kicking game, allowing Swift to receive the ball on the 20, already carrying it up to the 30. And then the forwards of Burgess and Wilson especially as well, who got through a lot of work, even defensively as well, really punching Warrington up the gut and making some good meters, getting into Warrington's territory. But it's just then spreading the ball, connecting, but it wasn't quick enough, or maybe wasn't creative enough at times. But that will come over time once they get players back into natural positions, like Hewitt, I believe is a second rower who's playing at centre. Always difficult, even though it's a close position, it's not the same effectiveness really. But when players are back in positions, when Richardson has more time to gel, or when Clune comes back in, they'll build on it. And I think Cudjoe at 13 offers them stability, and with his ability, he'll learn to transition in that role and offer a lot more over time. So work in progress for Huddersfield, but a much better start and positive signs going forward. So the Giants are in 9th. Moving on to 8th place, I've actually got the Wigan Warriors. Again, some people would want me to put them higher based on power rankings. I know this is what it is, but again, unofficial. Based on their performance, they're as low as they are just because of the number of points. Now, I do think their attacking effectiveness still looked good here and there. French was elusive at times. Field did look like a handful. There's a few times where Wigan were really pushed back. Field was under a lot of pressure, had to try and retreat and was trying to get around the Leigh players, but slipped over or was met by a single defender and was brought down immediately. So he had a lot of difficulties being pinned back in his own 10 and 20, but I think when he was in the middle third, moving into the red zone, was quite elusive, looking to really break open the line, and they almost had a try, but it was choked off from a great individual moment from Jay Field. I think, based on what we know about Wigan, they will improve, but defensively, you've got to give them credit to not concede any points for 80 minutes. You've got to give them complete and utter credit for that, but I just think the kicking game was very stale. The chase wasn't particularly good. There's a reason for that, and I'll kind of go into that more in my predictions video. But the kick chases weren't great sometimes. A little bit clueless on the last tackle at times as well, lacking a bit of creativity. The forwards, I think, were still fairly strong at times, but it was just little bits of quality here and there. In terms of a complete performance, it was far from it. And yeah, they'll improve, but obviously was not the worst performance of the week. So Wigan unofficially in 8th. Moving on to 7th place, I've got the Leigh Leopards. I think 2 main reasons why they are above Wigan. One, obviously, being because they won the game. Two, because there was more about their performance that actually impressed me. That might be partially because I was expecting them to be such massive underdogs. That could just be one way I'm looking at it. But a couple of things I liked about Leigh. Individual performances, I think Tessie Niu impressed me a lot. So did Hanley. O'Neill got through a lot of work. Trout actually had some quite effective runs. He was somebody I brought up in my predictions video that I was concerned about his size. And I think some Leigh fans advised me that he has actually played as a second rower, so that makes a lot of sense. But I think his carries are actually pretty good through the middle. So there's something to take into this week. But yeah, Hanley was solid, so was Tessie Niu. I think Lam and O'Brien connected okay. Armstrong connected okay as well. Will need a bit more time to gain experience, and they'll start to click as the season goes on. But positive signs, good intensity, and the most impressive thing from Leigh was their scramble defence. The way that they just worked hard, spreading across, it was really impressive. Really good stuff, because Wigan know how to shift. They've got some speed, but just the willingness and commitment to get across, shut down what Wigan were trying to do, what the great Wigan individuals were trying to do as well. It's just a really gutsy performance defensively. Still need to see more on attack, obviously, but great individual signs here and there, and as a unit, they're another team that will just improve over time. So, Leigh Leopards in 7th. Moving on to 6th place, I have the Warrington Wolves. I think the only thing that saves them from being as low as 8th, so behind Leigh and Wigan, is probably the second half performance and the fact that they looked a lot more creative. Mainly from a specific individual who I will get onto, but they could have been as low as 8th for this first, again, unofficial video. But I will say over the course of 80 minutes, did look defensively sound. There was a situation where they conceded a try, almost got a goal line stop, but conceded there. There was a bit of chaos for the first try that was conceded, so I can kind of let that slide. Obviously, it's not great. Dufty letting the ball bounce again. That was a big issue last year. That needs to be sorted out. It really does. Commit to it. And if we're not going to commit to catching the ball on the full, let's at least have a game plan for if we're just going to let the ball bounce. Players need to be more focused and we need to be ready for something. But yeah, I will say because of the chaotic nature, I can kind of excuse the defensive lapse there with players having to track back, but I can't excuse Dufty letting the ball bounce again, if that makes any kind of sense. So defensively, I don't really have any issues. I'm quite happy with that. On the attacking side, very stale in the first half. Connections were poor. I think there was a lack of intensity as well. Looked very similar to a Darryl Powell attacking side for Warrington, same as the opening fixture against Catalans last year, which also looked the same as a Darryl Powell attacking side for Warrington, just all the players stood in a line waiting to receive the ball. That was it, really. No real attempts to kind of sweep towards the edges, and just Dufty or Ratchford or Williams just caught in a dead end, having to turn back inside, and that was it for the most part. But finally, towards the back end of the first half, Williams getting involved, shifting towards the right, and then Lindup with some good, a good solo effort to get some points back on the board. And then Dufty, thank God he's as good as he is, and thank God he's here, because he was then involved, I believe, in the next 3 tries, 2 assists and then a try himself. So yeah, great individual performance from Matt Dufty. Ratchford, I think, slowly got into the game a little bit better. I think Crowther's ball handling actually helped with the movement a bit as well. Crowther is a little bit of an underrated player, and yeah, we eventually spread the ball a bit better because of him, and then putting Dufty in better positions, also making great individual plays. But I think we were beating up a little bit in the forwards at times. I'm thinking maybe we might need to start Vaughan and Musgrove as our 2 biggest blokes in the forward pack, and giving us something through the middle. But I think Walker at least helped to make up for some of it. I think we're missing Leyland as well, but Warrington Wolves in 6th. Moving on to 5th place, I have the Castleford Tigers. I was really, really impressed with their efforts against Hull Kingston Rovers. I had them as one of the biggest losers from my predictions in round one, and I was very pleasantly surprised with that performance they put out. It wasn't obviously perfect from Hull KR, who we'll get on to. Obviously, as you see, they've not been mentioned yet. But I was pleasantly surprised with Cass and very proud of their efforts. Again, a little bit like with Huddersfield, you can see clear signs that they've made improvements. Pre-season looked really rough, very ugly for them, and I had no idea how this was going to go, but they were ready for it. Great work from Westerman through the middle, sometimes playing as the prop, sometimes playing in the 13 role. Great work from Lawler as well. I think Horn gave them a lot of stability, playing 9 and 13 as well. Rimbu looked exciting at times. He'll definitely grow as the season goes on. And what I was most impressed with was, given that they've already had a rough pre-season, then the team that comes out. Now, I didn't know about the situation with Rowan Mills. I didn't know he was injured. I see the team sheet. I see Fletcher Rooney at fullback. I see Tex Hoy at 7 with Dejan Assi at 6. And I'm thinking, they're screwed. They are absolutely screwed. And for some reason, I have a bit of a soft spot for Cass. And I'm actually happy that they proved me wrong. Because Fletcher Rooney put in a hell of a performance, put under a lot of pressure and dealt with it well. Great solo try. Dejan Assi's kicking game does need to be a bit better. But Tex Hoy, great display. I was worried that him not being at least at number 1, maybe they could have put Fletcher Rooney as the 6 just to, have a run game, and then Assi as the 7 just to control the kicking game, to allow Tex Hoy to be their most effective player as he was last year in attack at number 1. But him at number 7, it just kind of worked, and he was involved in a lot of things that were good for Cass, and he did a really good job, and I was very proud of the efforts defensively and through the middle. There was a willingness to be creative and to work hard, to move the ball around, to play with pace. I think it's a real step up. It could have been such a rough start to the season, but I am, again, pleasantly surprised with Cass's opening performance of the season. So the Tigers are in 5th. Moving on to 4th place, I have Hull Kingston Rovers. Now, individuals really dragged them out of this, because as a unit, it was a little bit disappointing for me. A bit too stale in attack at times. Defensively, for the most part, I think was fine. Some lapses here and there, but for the most part, was passable. In attack, again, individual displays. Mikey Lewis, of course, was huge, involved in the first try. Great little ball out the back to Niall Evalds to then set up Burgess for his opening try. Then getting involved, I believe his bullet pass across to Burgess got them their try that got them the lead for the second time later on into the game when they really needed it. And then, of course, the game-winning drop goal. So Mikey Lewis, man of steel, game winner in the opening fixture when they really needed it. When as a unit, it wasn't really clicking, he stepped up just enough times during the game to make it happen. And that's what you need. Because games like this will happen. They'll face other good teams as the year goes on. And it just takes moments like that. So, unfortunately, you don't want to have to do it round 1. You want to look perfect. I know I do for Warrington, but, that's what your game winners are there for. I think one of the biggest issues for me was they made great meters when they spread the ball towards the left edge, at least in their own half and in the middle third. And they eventually started going towards the left edge in the red zone, but it just took them a while to realise, hang on, we're losing, we're looking stale down the right, we're not getting anywhere. How about we set up in the middle or towards the right and then properly shift the ball across in the red zone, get into Minchella, then to May to draw some in, out the back to Lewis, and then possibly out the back to Evalds, linking up possibly with Gildart, who's looked really elusive and quite dangerous down that left, and maybe get out to Burgess. They eventually did that, and guess what? They scored and took the lead for the second time in the game late on. So it was just really stale down the right, and it was a bit frustrating even for me. I'm not even a Hull KR fan, thinking, you do know you've got a ton of speed down the left, right? You should probably start using it more whilst you're losing. And they eventually recognised that that's where they need to go, and they did. But yeah, defence, for the most part, I'm okay with. Their attack, sparks here and there, individual performances that really helped. Obviously, Burgess getting a hat-trick, but he was helped a lot by solid individual efforts from Evald, Gildart, and Lewis. You know, the guys that you want holding the ball as much as possible with their speed, their overall quality. The forwards, I think, did a good job through the middle. And yeah, Lytton, I think, when they struggled a bit at times in the middle, I think Lytton helped to really change that. But wasn't the most impressive performance in the world. Hull KR would have liked to have started the season much better, given how incredible they looked towards the back end of last season. But games like this will happen, and I'm sure they'll improve. But Hull Kingston Rovers in 4th. Moving on to 3rd place, I have Wakefield Trinity. They looked like a standard Super League team. I think the foundations that they get to build from now are much higher than, say, London Broncos had to start from last year. They looked comfortable, and when I say comfortable, I don't mean like they were never challenged, because obviously it was a challenge towards the back end of the game. Obviously they did have a 14-0 lead, but that's not even how I mean comfortable. I just mean they didn't look out of place. I guess that's probably a better way of saying it. They didn't look out of place. There's good carries through the middle, good intent. I think they linked well. I think the accuracy of the passes is important as well. To allow players to stay in stride, that meant that the momentum and speed that they can spread to the edges with was good. The work rate from John Stone, Corey Hall, who was the right centre. I can't remember his name down the right-hand side. But the work from the backs, and Jowett as well, the work from the backs was great, carrying the ball out, getting involved a lot, and just very solid through the middles. I think missing a few too many tackles, that's the biggest problem. But that's probably on an individual basis. As a unit, I think the scramble defence was really good. Shifted across quickly, really trying to shut the door in Leeds' face, and didn't really give them many opportunities, at least in the middle third, which I think is great. If you can, as a new team in Super League, if you can make sure that teams aren't steamrolling you through the middle of the field and putting you on the back foot, you're off to a good start as a new team in Super League. So I was impressed with them as a new outfit. I think there's a great foundation to build from here. And hopefully, I think a good season for Darryl Powell back in Super League. I think it would be really good for him after how things went with Warrington. And yeah, I think all those individuals will take a lot of confidence from those efforts individually. And even as a unit, the way they spread the ball, they look quite effective. So a lot to build on from that. I think the thing is, given where they've started and how much they can build on top of it, it could be exciting for Wakefield. Now, whether they'll end up in the playoffs remains to be seen. We're still going to need more evidence over the next couple of weeks of what they're capable of. But, again, Wakefield fans will be very happy, and I'm happy for them. Great start. Looked impressive. Looked comfortable. Looked like they knew what they were doing. So, Wakefield Trinity in 3rd. Moving on to 2nd place, I have Hull FC. So, unfortunately, their game was the only one that I didn't see this week, because I was watching Hull KR vs Castleford instead. I haven't been able to watch it back yet. So, I'm only really able to go off the highlights video and statistics on the Super League website. But they completed at 99%. So, in terms of getting the basics right, you're almost perfect. Almost. So, good start. Defensively, there was 36 play the balls for Catalans in Hull's 20-metre zone. And to come up against the power that Catalans have in the forwards and the quality that they've even got towards the edges, to only concede, and then actually to concede no points from the red zone, because Catalans' try came from a break in the middle third, 36 play the balls they had to deal with in their own 20 and conceded 0 points in that area. You must be doing something right defensively, especially against that Catalans lineup. Pangai Jr., Benjamin Garcia, Satai, Navarrete. I could continue. And to have that kind of defensive resilience must mean you're doing something right. Now, some of the tries, I'd say 2 of them were a little bit chaotic, so probably more so off chaos than creation. And that's not to knock them, but I would say more off chaos than creation. But clearly looked like they looked comfortable when shifting the ball, especially for the try that they scored off their own backs properly. Caesar looked comfortable in that move, so did Cust. Rapiner getting involved as well. So I will learn about Hull FC as I go, and I think this will be a great test against Wigan, because I think Wigan will be massively improved and will give them a great challenge. So I'm looking forward to seeing that one. But I would like to hear mostly from Hull FC fans or anyone that watched that game what you think of their performance, and what they could possibly do this season off what you guys saw, because I don't have enough to say off it. I can only really speculate from statistics at the moment. But Hull FC in second. Finally, in first place, I have St Helens. Of course, again, with an asterisk. Look, as the saying goes, you can only play what's in front of you. And what do you expect? I mentioned in my match review video exactly that, you expect them to batter Salford, but at what point is it not good enough? If they only win 20-0, is it not good enough? Probably not. What about 40? What about 60? Where's the cutoff for what they should be winning by? Do you know what I mean? It's the same with England against Samoa last year. It's like, because it was only Samoa's C team, according to a lot of people. It's like, England should win. That's a bit of the narrative, at least from the Samoan side of things, for some people, not all of them. So, what were they supposed to do, really? But to kind of at least analyse individually, I suppose, Tristan Saylor looks absolutely rapid. Great acceleration. I was really impressed with Murphy over on the left wing. I think his intent to keep moving forwards, keep eating up the field position, I really liked that about his game. Kept working hard. Got rewarded with a try. I think he was the second try scorer of the game. Might have had another one later on, can't quite remember. But I think he quite impressed me just with his intent as the game went on. Because I think they could have taken a real back seat in this one, but I'm fine with them continuing to go at Salford and not just see it out. They went at them, showed individual quality. Tristan Saylor, carries from Knowles, Lees and Walmsley. Great runs by Darryl Clark through the middle, and yeah, I think there's room for them to show what they've, to show off what they've got next, this week. But what else can you say, really? So, in terms of quality of performance, best this week, and of course with the asterisk given the opposition. But I'm hoping by next week they'll get a real challenge. We'll see what they're made of properly, and then hopefully next week everyone can start to fit into a position that makes more sense. But yeah, St Helens in first. So that's going to be it for my Super League Round 1 power rankings. What I will say is, don't worry too much about the list right now. Again, it's pretty unofficial. As the season goes on, it will start to look more like a list that we can all get behind, and teams, at least probably from next week, will start to fit into a position that makes sense. Salford will have to see how things go. But yeah, if you guys have any thoughts just on team performances, individual performances, thoughts on some of the games this week, do let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoy this video, feel free to leave a like. It does help to get the video out there to more people, it really does. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with more Rugby League content, and check out the Kinetic Rugby League website in the description down below. But that's going to be it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.